Testing 1, 2, 3. Okay, it is 6:03, and I'll be calling the business meeting of the North Kingstown School Committee to order. I would like to move to go to executive session to discuss RIGL 42465. Do I have a second? Okay. And then, so the discussion on this is that we'll be going into executive session pertaining to potential litigation and legal advice and collective bargaining pursuant to the NEANK negotiations, A.N and C.N individually and as parents and friends to BN, a minor v. Town of North Kingstown, John Doe 23 versus North Kingstown School Department, and John Doe 42 versus North Kingstown School Department. All those in favor? Okay. Any opposed? Any abstentions? No, don't have to. Okay, great, thank you. We'll go to executive session. Okay, so we're going to reconvene from executive session, and please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, and roll call, please. Roll call, please.
Erin Earl.
Here.
Robert Case.
Here.
Jennifer Hoskins. Jennifer Lima. Thomas Bryety. Christine LaPierre. Gabriel Anthony.
Thank you, and please call the please do the calendar.
Tuesday, January 24th, school committee business meeting. Tuesday, February 7th, school committee business meeting. Monday, January 16th, Martin Luther King Jr. Day, no school. We have 2 subcommittee meetings scheduled, both January 18th. Building Subcommittee, 5 p.m., Wickford Middle. DEI Subcommittee, January 18th at 5:30 at Central Administration Conference Room.
Thank you. So now we are at the point of our agenda for citizens' comments. Please keep your comments to 3 minutes respectively so folks can speak. And if you haven't already signed up yet, you may do so at this time. And so the first person that signed up is Ken Duba.
Good evening, Ken Duba, 11 Beacon Drive. I'm speaking tonight as the superintendent of the Jamestown School Department. As you know, and as many members of the public know, we pay an annual tuition to send students from Jamestown to North Kingstown for their education. They also have a choice. They can choose to attend North Kingstown High School, Narragansett High School, or any charter. However, the majority of our students are here at your high school receiving their education. It's something that we're proud of. It's something that we have worked with you to continue that agreement, to continue that partnership, because we know it's important for our students, it's important for our community, and for the families as well. However, today we received communication from Jamestown officials and community members who are very concerned about the education for their students as a result of the most recent events. However, I'm confident that we will continue to work together. We're going to work together for the education of our students. We'll work together with Ms. Sapala, the future superintendent, the administration, the high school administration, for what's best for our students. It is a priority of ours, of mine, that we will work to oversee the education of the students that attend this high school from Jamestown, to oversee the education, the safety, the health, and well-being of our Jamestown students who attend this high school. And we want to continue to offer that partnership, to provide that support, and we're here to, support you and to continue that partnership that we have between Jamestown and North Kingstown, and to make sure that our students are receiving what they need, and for us to do our job, to work with you to make sure that their interests and their safety, health, well-being, and education are continuing to be provided to the students, to the families within our community. So thank you.
Okay, next is Lori Duffy. And just a note, the blue timer is not working, but Mr. Case will be taking the time on his phone and give you a 30-second warning as you approach 3 minutes.
Sure. Lori Duffy, 88 Haverhill Ave, North Kingstown. I just wanted to come tonight to tell the school committee that I support your immediate acceptance of the superintendent's resignation. It seemed clear to me that a superintendent who sees fit to release information to the media before releasing it to parents, staff, and taxpayers does not fully respect our community. We have woken to disturbing information from the media in the past, and we are a very fragile ecosystem. We need someone who understands that, and that change can't be made in just a few weeks' time. I feel it's time for us to look forward and to move on, and I hope that you're being proactive in reaching out to the teachers union to come up with a plan to ensure contract negotiations go on in both an effective and efficient manner, and that you can also please communicate to us what that process is going to be. I also hope that the school committee stands firm in your resolve that you will not make fiscal decisions without knowing what you're voting on. I attended a meeting where there was a list of votes that needed to be made, and you didn't have the information. How can we as a community say we're going to hold you responsible for those decisions if you don't have the documentation to back up to make informed votes? So I hope that whichever superintendent we have in the future, we have another interim superintendent right now, that you ask that same level of transparency and documentation. And lastly, I just wanted to say how horrified I was to learn that school committee member Jennifer Lima received an email with the universal symbol of white supremacy and violence against Black people, a noose. I can only imagine, as a white woman, what that must have felt like, and for you to have members of your family whose ancestors were tortured, were threatened, and were coerced through that, what that must have felt like for you. No one deserves that. And here in 2023, to see that your family still is experiencing that, I just wanted to say I'm truly sorry. Since you took office, you've been trying to send the message, and the school committee has backed you on that racism exists, and we all should be actively working against that. And I hope that this just strengthens everyone's resolve to do that. And just to the Lima family, we love you, and we support you, and we're sorry that this happened to you. Thank you.
Next up is Rachel Rinaldi.
Good evening. Rachel Rinaldi, 198 Glen Hill Drive, Saunderstown. I'm not only a current resident of North Kingstown and a parent of a third and first grader at Hamilton, but I was also a graduate of the North Kingstown School District, attending elementary, middle, and high school here. My husband and I both lived out of state for many years, and when deciding to settle down and raise our family, we chose North Kingstown. The feelings I had of excitement and trust in the school system and the school district has turned, unfortunately, to disappointment, frustration, and lack of trust. It has been an incredibly stressful and an inconsistent 4 years in North Kingstown, not only for our children and families through COVID, but for our teachers and our new principals, as well as our administrators. We all deserve better than this. We all deserve to feel proud of our decision to live in North Kingstown, to send our children to public school, and to have a sense of community with the members of the school committee and our superintendent. I'm not someone who has years of experience in public education, but I am someone who has over 15 years experience as a professional in leadership, guiding with empathy, motivation, and transparency with one of the world's largest healthcare companies, serving communities and children everywhere. At the foundation of any organization, there needs to be communication and respect for one another, of which I've seen very little. The North Kingstown School Department's vision includes the word inspire. You cannot inspire without communication, transparency, and a positive attitude and willing to try new things. From what I've seen from the current and previous school committee meetings, I've watched a consistent lack of respect for each other, and now for the fourth interim leader who's doing their best to guide with little support in a positive direction. We do need leadership and a permanent superintendent, special education director, committee chairs, and a plan for future school leaders, with many leaving our elementary and high school. We need a plan for new school buildings across the town, following no progress of proposals made 2 years ago. We need to have transparencies of our budget and know where our tax dollars are going and how much is being designated to our schools. Why was there no fit for a superintendent? Why did a unanimous decision to lean on Dr. Paolucci for her expertise fail so quickly? Is there an openness from this committee to hear the opinions of others, or are you looking for someone to follow what you're saying? You owe this to our community, to our educators, and most of all, our children, many of whom will be here for years to come. So I just would recommend thinking long and hard about the answers to these questions so our children can continue to have the best education and be supported by our leaders and a community we can all be proud of. Thank you.
Okay. Pamela Panera. And just a note, we did hear at the past citizen comments about the microphones, and the COO is looking for it. So thank you for that suggestion, Pamela.
Thank you. Pam Panero, 710 Slocum Road, North Kingstown. I actually went to school with Rachel, and I think she spoke very eloquently, and I agree with everything she said. I raised my kids here based on my experience as well. Really, I was here last night, so I'm still looking for some transparency regarding the resignation of the superintendent. She made her case clear. Unfortunately, I don't think the majority of the school committee members made their case clear. We need that transparency. We want to trust. We want to go forward. We need a clear path forward addressing the concerns that she laid out. She put it out there in the world for everyone to see. There needs to be a strong response from the school committee so we can have potential future candidates for the superintendent position. I also continue to believe class rank should be reinstated in the program of studies. Thank you.
Tiffany McLeod.
Tiffany McLeod, 170 Brookhaven Road, North Kingstown. So it seems like we finally had a worthy superintendent that was about to make some much needed change around here. One that parents, community members, and teachers all found impressive. And in a few short months, you found a way to chase her out of town. Looks to me like she tried her hardest to turn things around, but she wasn't the puppet you wanted her to be, and now she's gone. And to be honest, you aren't exactly the dream team you bragged about during campaign season. You have done nothing to help build trust since you've been elected. Jenny, I want to thank you for speaking your mind last night. It's not easy to do what you're doing, but myself and a whole lot of other people appreciate it, so hang in there. Last night was yet another embarrassment, plain and simple. This town deserves so much more. Thank you.
Jamie Bissett.
Hi, good evening. I'm Jamie Bashan at 55 Yellowstone Drive in North Kingstown. I have two young kids in this town. My son is in first grade at Quinnesset, having a great time. And my daughter will be in Quinnesset in kindergarten in the fall. I'm here tonight because, honestly, I'm frustrated and disappointed. I'm frustrated that it's been the better part of 10 months, and we don't have a new superintendent. We don't have a new leader for this district, and that's just really frustrating. We're also on the heels today of the resignation of, the most recent interim superintendent. It doesn't sound like she was going to be a great fit in this district anyway, given the manner in which she resigned, which is, I think, just absolutely terrible. But what's frustrating to me is that she was hired and vetted by the school committee in the first place. She was here for 2 months and wasn't able to get along with the very people that sat with her and hired her in that first instance. We've spun our wheels for 2 months, and we are no closer to getting a new superintendent in this district. I think there needs to be accountability for that issue and a good hard look at where was that gap, where was that disconnect in hiring this new person to lead our children and our teachers in this great district, for that to have failed so quickly. I hope that there is a commitment and resolve. I know that the latest email did say that the school committee will move swiftly to hire the right appropriate candidate, and I hope that there is that commitment and resolve to do that. My concern is that a lack of leadership in this district will lead to losing what matters most to our kids, which are our great teachers and our great faculty that I am so appreciative for. I also attended North Kingstown Elementary, middle school, and high school, and chose to raise my children here as well. And I look forward to North Kingstown regaining that momentum with new leadership in this district. And I hope the school committee will appropriately vet and engage in a meaningful hiring process to make sure that that leadership exists in this town. And relatedly, I just want to point out there's been some comments about lack of transparency, and I do share that feeling. It sounds like I'm not alone there. I think it's important that there is open and honest
30 seconds.
Dialogue in this community in NK at this very moment. There needs to be more communications from the school committee and through the district to the members of this community about what the plan is going forward and what the plan is ultimately for our kids, because at the end of the day, all of this matters to our kids and for our kids. So please continue and think hard about honest and transparent communications in this district going forward. And I really look forward to strong leadership from a superintendent. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else signed up for citizens comment? Okay. So the next item on business is the superintendent's report. Kathy.
Thank you, Dr. Earl. First thing I'd like to say is I'd like to give a brief report and synopsis on fiscal issues, because I think in some of the stories that I heard, certainly on the news today, and in conversation last night, was that there were concerns expressed relative to the fiscal practices in the district. And it is important to me to provide another perspective on that, a perspective that is grounded in a very hardworking fiscal team at the central office. We have 2 controllers, we have 2 accounting clerks, and a payroll department. And bills are getting paid, and salaries and checks are getting cut. And there are no problems in that issue at all. In addition, that team, without a finance director, and that is a very unfortunate situation, has continued to meet all requirements that the Rhode Island Department of Ed or our town expects relative to fiscal issues. I just want to, it's fiscal speak, but I do want to mention the things that they have accomplished in a very short period of time that meet the requirements of a well-run fiscal department. Those include the closing of fiscal 22 process in the Munis software system. Now, Munis is a bear, there's no question about that, and we have new people working in the district in that regard. However, it was done and done satisfactorily. In addition, the Rhode Island Department of Ed expects an entire UCOA, Universal Chart of Accounts, accounting, to be done every single year. That was done on time this summer by our small fiscal staff. The annual audit has been completed at the school level, and as of today, our report from the company that did conduct the audit is that we can expect, I'm going to read from that email right now, we can expect that after Mr. Lathrop gets a few more schedules to them and a few more financial statements, that they will be able to have a complete draft of our financials and the management letter shortly after that. So we expect that in the month of January. That's a huge accomplishment as well, because it's a lot of work that the group does do to prepare for that. And we are training and working towards budget preparation through the Munis system. So I just want a picture to be clear that we do have a plan to work on budget. Last night I even said I would be that partner in the budget process, and there is absolutely no question about that. We do have a plan. We have created that plan. We are starting with salaries and staffing. Dr. Paolucci had done a tremendous job of working with the principals and reviewing staffing. We have an entire board of that. I have a very good handle on staffing at this point in the district. I've been here since April, and most of my work has been in the schools. So I have a good picture of staffing in those places that we need some changes to improve instruction. And so we're going to start with staffing, and then we are going to be working and collaboratively with the town as well on the rest of that budget. So we have a lot of work to do, but we do have a confidence about that, and I really want to convey that to members of the school committee and members of our public tonight. That being said, Dr. Paolucci had prepared some comments, and I would like to share those as she has recognized district accomplishments since she has been in this seat. And I'm going to read from some of the things that she has and share a few of my own as well. So she did say that while it's impossible to adequately recognize all the accomplishments of North Kingstown's educators and students, of particular note is the first division win for North Kingstown varsity hockey. Last March, team won Division II boys hockey and moved to Division I this year, and that's a great accomplishment. I personally attended the opening at the Wickford Art Festival, the Wickford Art Association last Friday of a joint members and student celebration, gallery celebration, and it was absolutely beautiful. And that celebration is open right through the month of, the entire month of January, to be able to see ceramic work and beautiful art pieces. There was music as well from one of our high school students. It was a great celebration and a great way to end a kind of a difficult week. As one of the art teachers said to me, art heals, and it certainly does. And so that was a great celebration. Judy mentioned it, and I was there to see it, so it was terrific. The North Kingston High School wrestling team earned a third place at the Chad Antock Memorial Tournament with 5 wrestlers winning individual medals. And Stony Lane School received a citation for their RIDE 5-star status from our state representative, Julie Casimiro. So those are some recognitions and well-deserved recognitions. In your packet this evening, committee, there is an enrollment report from NSDEC. NSDEC is a firm that provides enrollment projections from a historical perspective and a looking forward perspective. That's its purpose. When districts are looking to do some projections for where are those places that we're going to have changes needed in terms of grade levels and buildings and all of that, you look to the NSDEC report. So while I'm not prepared to discuss that in detail with you tonight, it's there in your packet. It's a computer-generated piece that takes into account birth rates and attrition and historical perspective. It's an important piece, but we've also provided to you our actual weekly enrollment report. And both Dr. Paolucci and I have felt this is important to include regularly in your packet. And I think we do, but I'd like to bring attention to it because it's taking the NSDEC projections along with the reality of where our students are in each particular school, where the classrooms are full, where they're less full, as we make a budget that supports the needs of the schools and the students. So it's these things taken in combination, and I wanted you to see these tonight, to be able to see if there are any hot spots, any areas that we need to, that when budget comes, you'll be able to compare the projections, our enrollments, and ask those important questions. Are we satisfactorily organizing each of our schools to meet the enrollment patterns? You'll see that the NSDEC piece does say that enrollment will probably, just like it is statewide and just like it is nationally, having a slow down trend, but not that much of a slow down trend in North Kingstown. We actually expect within the next 10 years a slight increase, and they have had a lot of success in these 10-year projections, and it's a piece to consider along with the reality. Any questions or comments on that, committee? I think we'll return to projections very often as you look at budget. In your packet, I prepared a summary report of the ESS work in our school department. If you give me a minute, I'm going to pull that up to reference. So for those in the audience, ESS is the short term for Effective School Solutions, which is a school clinical mental health treatment program in the North Kingstown schools at North Kingston High School and Davisville Middle School that is in its second year. Last June, this committee, in some very well-constructed questions, worked with ESS and Dr. Carson to improve the program this year over last year. And in fact, you were successful in negotiating a contract for less money than they had originally proposed. And more services was what they promised. Dr. Carson, our Director of People Personnel Services, did go on to another position in the fall, and I took her place in those meetings that happen monthly with ESS. In addition to monthly meetings, meetings happen between the school staff and the clinicians at those sites. So there's a lot of interaction back and forth. In fact, in the month of December, I think I had 3 meetings with them. And they present this report card that gives a perspective of how many students are seen, how many therapeutic interactions, et cetera. So I gave you a summary report of that and some of my current thoughts about what I'm expecting to see more from the group in the future. So if you would like me, committee, I would just, for the audience's sake, do some of the summary, identify some of those pieces. All right. So in our December 22nd report card, it did report that we have had 34 students successfully enrolled in ESS, over 1,000 therapeutic interactions. And a therapeutic interaction means individual counseling services, family services, administrative services, educational interactions. This level of counseling is usually designed to help students who are particularly challenged in emotional ways and might even have to be out of school if they didn't have this level of support. That's what ESS really, that's the whole point of existence. And given what's going on with COVID and the so many changes, it was the decision of the school administration, recommendation, and supported by the school committee with a contract that this company be that company that provide the service. So the ultimate purpose of it is for them to be in school and to be more successful at school. So as ESS analyzes the grades of the students that they serve, there was a 60% of the students saw an improvement in grades, 85% of them maintained or decreased their discipline referrals, 60% of students maintained or improved attendance. And so those are highlights of that particular report. Stronger performance than last spring. And we are, the counselors are seeing more students at the level 2 and 3 levels. And a level 3 level means students of most need. Level 2 is a little bit less need. We even use those tiers in our educational reading and math designations too, so it kind of makes sense to people. So another thing that the committee asked for was professional development, both professional development for staff as well as families. And so we currently have a program at the high school which has delivered now 2 clinical programs for staff. Is that correct? 1 today and 1 last before Christmas? Say that again. And, okay. So we've had 2 programs delivered, and the topics are listed in the handout that I gave you. Our goal is to also have Davisville Middle School staff have professional development as well. They've had 1 thus far, but I actually have a meeting on Thursday to plan the rest of their professional development. And then I'm quite pleased that they are offering to our entire district a Parent University series that I have a meeting on Thursday to work on. So these monthly report cards will continue to come, and the committee will be wrestling with the decision about a 3rd year of programming. The funds that pay for this are ESSER funds. It has been properly budgeted. There are other ways to use our ESSER funds if the committee so decides. I don't have a full recommendation for you now, but I do see improvement, but I'm also looking for more students to be serviced. That is the bottom line. So I don't know if you want to entertain questions, Chair. I'm happy to do that to the best of my ability. Any questions? Yes, go ahead.
Thank you for putting this together, and especially for adding your comments regarding the pros and cons of what you've seen compared to last year. I just want to clarify one thing. ESS is going to provide quarterly updates, correct, after the grades end, not monthly updates?
Quarterly, I'm sorry.
Okay,
if
no,
I said monthly,
yep.
We had a December meeting and a February. I think their December should have been November, to tell you the truth. So
right.
that's.
And then,
but we do meet also monthly. So,
right. But the data from them will come on a quarterly basis. The last year they provided the information. They broke it out between maintained, stayed the same, and decreased. Like they didn't lump maintained and increased together.
Okay.
So if you could ask them to provide the information that they gave you this time in that same fashion, because I think it's important to see the distinction between no change, plus change, and minus change. So if you could just ask them, and they did it last year, so it shouldn't be an issue for them to do it. Okay. That would be great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions from the committee?
And my final piece is a personnel search review. I know that people are looking for those permanent people to be in the district, and I most certainly share that as well. As you know, I'm a retiree, and serving my time to support the district and the administrators, but you do need full-time new employees. But we are on that trajectory for sure. So, just give me one sec to find that sheet. It's within Dr. Paolucci's report. Hold on. Thank you. All right. The assistant superintendent search, the position that I now hold, will close this Friday. We have 18 candidates, and I'm proud to say they are strong, not 18 strong candidates, but a good number of strong candidates. I'll be conducting that search. That's something that I enjoy doing, enjoy talking about this district, the strengths of this district, and what this district needs. So I'm feeling very confident about an assistant superintendent joining this team. I would hope in the late winter, early spring. And so I feel really confident about that. Finance director position, already mentioned that we do not have a finance director, and that position, that posting also closes this week. There are not many candidates, and it will be my recommendation that we go out again at a different time for a finance director. I did tell you that we are going to be working cooperatively with the town to assist us as well through budget period, and I would prefer to do that rather than make a decision right now on finance director. HR director, I was able to offer the position to a candidate today. I'll be negotiating contract with that candidate by the end of the week. I wasn't ready to do that today. I had to get a few more pieces and information together, but I did at least ask them to have that entertaining conversation with me this week. So I'm really confident about the possibility of a new HR director in a short period of time. Our PPS director did leave in the winter, and that search was unsuccessful. We did make an offer to a candidate who chose to stay in the district that he is now serving. We were very happy with that candidate, but that candidate was also happy with the district that they worked in and ultimately made that decision. We did not bring another candidate forward because the committee felt strongly that there was only one strong candidate, so we did not do that. But we have a wonderful interim, Britta Coombs, who worked in this district several years ago, so she has been our interim PPS director. She's indicated that she can work perhaps till the 1st of March, so we will go out for another search in February. But in the meantime, we are also contacting some other retirees to help in that effort. And Forest Park Elementary School, the search has closed. The interviews are scheduled for next week. Strong candidates. I'm confident about a good outcome for that one. And the Wickford Middle School position closes this Friday. Another one that has quite a few applicants, and Dr. Jody Clark is heading that search as well as the Forest Park search. So we are busy and active and proud to show off this district and look for some good, strong leaders. So parents who are concerned about the leadership at your schools, it is those principals who are those leaders. That makes the difference at your schools. And we have good principals, and we are looking for more strong leaders to join our team. So that's the administrative search situation.
Great, thank you. Any questions from the committee? Great. I just wanted to say thank you so much, Ms. Apala, for providing that very extensive report in a short amount of time. And we're very grateful for your being willing to hold this role and really work hard for the district. And so I am personally very grateful, and I know the committee is grateful as well. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, this is on. Ms. Apala, when I came in tonight, I had indicated to the chair that I had some questions. You've answered half of them during your presentation, and I think you've given a lot of assurance to this community. And I just want to state very clearly, I have never doubted your ability from the first time that I spoke with you. Last night was very difficult. I was very aggressive at times, and with you, and if I showed disrespect, I want to apologize to you publicly and in front of the community here. I have no doubt about your abilities, no doubt about your integrity, and certainly no doubt about your work ethic. Thank you very much.
Welcome. Any other comments or questions from the committee? All right, thank you so much. Moving on to the consent agenda. Is there anything that anyone would like to pull out of the consent agenda? No, hearing none. Can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda? So moved. Do we have a second? So moved by Mr. Case, seconded by Ms. Lima. All those in favor, or discussion, excuse me? No, yeah, discussion, excuse me. Okay. All those in favor of approving the consent agenda, please say aye. Aye. Okay. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Passes unanimously. Thank you. So moving on to unfinished business. The first item of unfinished business is the school committee's approval of the high school programs of study. And so the school committee has received a first presentation regarding the program of study that oversees the high school, and I believe the staff has a presentation and has some answers to the committee's questions from last time. So I'll turn it over to them. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Shivali Finkelstein, and I'm the assistant principal at the high school. What I prepared for you today in the packet is we realized that last time we talked about the summary of secondary regulations coming up, but we did not have the actual bulleted items for you. So on your change packet, which we provide to you, we gave you that on the top. So just so you have, those were the bullets that we went through last time. There was a mention in the last time we talked about this that we are going to fix the mission statement, which was incorrect. So in your packet, we have told you what we removed and what we added. Okay. That was only the two changes that we were going to make, but then we received some questions from the school committee. So what we did in the packet is gave you all the questions that we received via email. The last meeting when we did this on December was really, really long, and so in the interest of time, I know that you were going to email me questions. So in your packet, and I am going to try to go through this really fast, just walk you through the document, and then I'll take any questions you have. So some of them were just really basic, but I wanted to make sure everything is on this document. So the questions were about some name changes. We fixed that. There were some questions about prefixes that were a little inconsistent on the cover page, so we fixed that. There was a question if we could add gender to the non-discrimination statement, and so we just said, we can't really change that statement because it does come from the district documents through some process in the past that the school committee had established. So the statement or non-discrimination statement that you see in the program of studies is basically a statement that shows up in all kind of various documents throughout the district, normally on the footnotes area. So we did say that we're going to leave it as is until the committee decides to make any changes on that statement, and then we will revise it in the program of studies. There was a suggestion made, which was a good one, if we could include some information on Canvas and Aspen into our program of studies. So we did that. This information stays in the parent newsletter that goes out, but what we did is we put it into the program of studies, just clarifying what is Aspen used for, what is Canvas used for, so that the community has specific information on what to use when. The next question was about having non-college post-graduation options fleshed out in the program of studies. So we just talked to you about, we gave you some information in your packet, but that is really part of the curriculum that the guidance department uses with the students when they meet the students, when they post this information on Canvas. And so what we gave you was kind of a post-secondary planning document that has tons of resources that's shared with the students. So we don't believe it is an item to go specific. It's not a programming, so we don't believe it goes in the program of studies, but it is embedded in the curriculum. So if it's helpful, we gave you that little resource to kind of take a look at, and you can click in. There was another question, and I'm just going to read the question so everybody understands what the question was. There was a discussion in the health curriculum meeting about parents being able to opt out of the suicide educational part of the health curriculum. Is that included in one of the statutes that was referenced? If not, should it be? So what I gave you in the packet is just the general law about health education. There is a comprehensive health curricula for the high school that we are required by Rhode Island Department of Education to have within our frameworks. And that does include health education, health services, and a healthful school environment. Within that, those 3 domains, suicidal behavior is kind of a required part of the curriculum per the general law. And I kind of gave you the laws so you can see what we follow. And then, so we design our curriculum around those requirements. And then there are 3 statutory waivers that Rhode Island Department of Education allows us to, or actually requires us to give exemptions to for parents. So there is not a blanketed, you can just opt out of anything you want, but there is 3 statutes. What we did notice, and we appreciated this question because when we looked into this further, we did notice that we had 2 statutes listed in the program of studies, but we were missing to reference one, even though we do have that, all those packaged into 10th grade health classrooms. So when we have 10th grade classes starting up, we send the waiver letter to the parents and we ask them if you are interested in, if you want your student to remain, you have to do nothing. But if you're interested in having these, your student not have access to this particular part that they are allowed to get waived from, then they send us a little form and then we waive them out of 10th grade. Those 3 are health and family life courses, AIDS education, and then school health. So what we changed in the program of studies is we just clearly specified that those are the 3 specific waivers that Rhode Island Department of Education allows for schools to waive. However, we did notice that our school committee policy on health kind of contradicts this a little bit. So this is something we'll come back to the table for in the future. That policy does say that North Kingstown will support any waiver of any kind for the health. So we do honor that, just so the committee knows. This, we want to make sure that we put the accurate information by law that Rhode Island Department of Education requires us in the program of studies. But we do work with families when they, if they wanted to waive something beyond what's allowed, we do work with them on case-by-case basis. And then there was a question about one of the courses topics in math that we are going to be removing from the program of studies with the new arrangement of new regulations. And I know there was a concern about what alternative courses students can take. So I just kind of laid that out for you. We do have Algebra 2 every day that we did not have in the past. So that is one option. College and career math, we have revised that program to align with some financial math course that students see in parts of it in consumer math, in the business math. So that is a revised curriculum, so that would be an option. And then they could also take statistics at a CP level, and then we also have a consumer math. So they do have 4 different choices of math class, and also they are able to take other math courses in the business department and engineering department that they can take in place of the topics in math if they chose to. And then finally, there was a question about, there was a discussion last year, I believe, about 6th grade placement for students into the math course at the middle school level. And I know there was an interest in receiving some data on students that got into the Algebra 1, which students didn't get in, and what the override numbers look like. I don't have that information, but I did put in here that this information, I confirmed with the Assistant Superintendent's office that this information can be obtained if the committee puts in a request through the Assistant Superintendent's office. So that's all I have for you, but I'll take any questions you may have.
Great, and thank you so much for the really thoughtful presentation that you did for the committee last time, and also for taking the time to answer these questions and get a little bit more in depth in the information. And so any questions regarding the program of studies at this time? You could just use the mic, sorry, thank you.
The only other question that I had was as it pertained to academic recognition in the program and the class rank discussion. That was it, and I don't know if that's a conversation for today. But
yeah, so I did want to address that because I know that it has been a question from the community as far as academic recognition and rank, and I know that they are that it has a brief mention in the program of studies, but also I would love the thoughts on what you all think is the best next step for that as far as exploring that for the community.
Yeah, so there is actually a document provided to you that was information that Dr. Paolucci had gathered from us, and that document has the history of in 2016 when the ranking information, when the ranking conversation started. For class of 2020, the class rank was it was decided the class rank won't be published. So since then, there's a whole chain of events that have happened since then up until now, up until recently in 2022 when Dr. Morse came in and did a little presentation for the school committee. The way we left off in 2022 is that we will be recognizing the top 10 students in no particular order, and we, except for 1 and 2, valedictorian, salutatorian, will be published. And we will announce that, and we'll have a celebratory breakfast and recognition, and we'll have that printed in the newspaper that we didn't have last year. So that's where we left it. It's in the minutes are in there in that packet for you, just so you can see the history, and that's kind of where we are. Unless we receive any different direction. I didn't know.
Dr. Morris, would you like to add?
Just that in the packet, we also included more information that was given last time. Based on the questions that we received from the school committee and the interest in going forward and relooking at this topic, we embarked on a information gathering task with the guidance department where all of the representatives from colleges who came in were asked questions about how they treat class rank and their acceptances. So we included all of that data in there. But if it's a topic that you're interested in pursuing, I would suggest that it not delay the program of studies, but that we go forward with that on another line. But delaying the program of studies would really hold up a lot of processes that need to happen. Including, it's like a domino effect. Once the program of studies is approved, we start working with students to schedule their classes. Guidance counselors have a scheduled meeting with students one-to-one, and that leads into figuring out how many kids are in what classes and staffing, and it would tie up a lot of things to prolong that process.
Understood, thank you. Questions or discussion from the committee? Go ahead, Rob. Oh, excuse me.
Thank you to Dr. Morse and Ms. Chavali for your presentation and answering the questions and doing such a phenomenal job. I appreciate the information. I would concur with Dr. Morse. I think it's important that we pass this tonight. And I think if it's beneficial, and I've also heard from the community several times, and I think we can pass this tonight, and I don't see any reason why we couldn't have a working group if people want to explore this further, and because it is kind of time sensitive that we get this done so they can do their jobs. So I would encourage my fellow committee members to pass this tonight, and then we can continue working on the recognition piece down the road with the working group.
Dr. Finkelstein, I just have a question. Are you able to just talk about what we had talked about with the algebra in 8th grade and the prerequisite for?
Yeah, so in the past, we've had questions that come to the high school about students not particularly not being able to access the geometry course, but it was more about having the science prerequisite attached to the math prerequisite. So as of now, we have not had any override requests at the high school to come to 9th grade and start geometry. We've had 0 requests, but we did have a few requests in the last 2 years for students that were coming in and not having Algebra 1 under their belt at the high school level to be able to access the honors science courses. So that's the part we worked on with the middle school principals, and we have developed a process this year for the science teachers at the middle school level in both Wickford and Davisville to recommend students, even if they haven't taken Algebra 1, to recommend them to the science honor class with a little criteria. And they would still have to go through the override process, which will get sent to me directly or whoever is in my position. And we will work through that and allow that. We were not receiving any recommendation. It was just up to the parents. And so now we have opened that up for the parents are still able to do that. And in addition to that, the teachers will be using a criteria and recommending the students that may not take geometry at the high school level, but they still will have access to the science courses through the override process. I don't know if that's what you were looking for.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate that. I just know it affected lots of students, and parents weren't sure of a process until it was too late, and a lot of kids really wanted to take that honors science track but couldn't because they weren't slotted for the algebra in 8th grade.
Yeah, and the principals are going to work out the communication piece. The middle school principals are working out that communication piece with the teachers and how that information will get to the parents. Thank you.
Dr. Morris, I was curious. Did you? I know. The director of guidance is here. Did you want any comments regarding Mr. Chase's thoughts on a working group regarding class rank? Either yourself or if Mia.
For Mr. Chase to speak?
Oh, no, I'm sorry. On the thoughts of putting together a working group to have that conversation.
No, I definitely think that.
Thank you.
I definitely think that is something that the community has expressed an interest in doing. And one of the things that we would like to do and take a process like this is to include stakeholders, to bring this onto the agenda of the PTSO or the school improvement team, to gather information and to make people really understand the choices that we're making and why we're making them. And in my opinion, it's a much healthier venue for students to learn to work with their weighted GPAs than their class rank. Class rank is a comparison of how you compare to someone else. And that's not always the healthiest of mindsets for adolescents, whereas a weighted GPA is based on what you yourself do and what you yourself can change. It's not a competition thing with others, it's a competition thing with yourself. And I think that's a healthier way to look at it. And we could be giving more statistics to students so they can make judgments about their weighted GPA. For instance, what is the expected GPA to attend four-year colleges? Or what is our high and low GPA? What is our median weighted GPA? So those are things that, as classroom teachers, we sometimes publish about assessments we give so students can know where they're falling within the pack without having to know what other people's grades were. So I think that's maybe a healthier way to go about it, but I definitely think it's a good discussion to have going forward.
Thank you so much. Any other questions from the committee? Additional comments? Okay, and so thank you so much. Thank you. And so for item B, this is under for discussion and possible action. And so at this time, I would ask if anyone would like to take any action to make a motion. Okay, so we have a motion from Ms. Hoskins and a second from Mr. Chase to approve the program of studies. And then we can have any further discussion. Okay, hearing no further discussion, I will call the vote. All those in favor of approving the program of studies, please say aye. Aye. Okay, any opposed? Any abstentions? Program of studies passes unanimously. And thank you so much for all the preparation and work that goes into putting together such an accurate document and the great things that you all do for the high school students. Really appreciate it. So the next topic on the agenda is discussion and possible action update on the superintendent search. And so just kidding. Oh, excuse me. So discussion and possible action of the MOU between the North Kingstown School Department and the North Kingstown Police Department. And so I would defer to Mike Waterman to give an update on this.
Thank you. Just prior to the winter vacation, I had reached out to Captain St. Ange from the North Kingston Police Department, and I learned that they were working on a draft MOU to share with us, and we also had a draft to share with them. So we've recently exchanged versions. We're both reviewing them. Ours was a lengthy document based out of Massachusetts. Theirs was a bit shorter, so we're just giving them the time to review ours, and then we'll be speaking in the upcoming week.
Thank you so much. Any questions from the committee regarding this topic? Okay. We very much appreciate the update, and it seems like there's no action needed at this time, and so we will look forward to future updates regarding the MOU between those two areas. Thank you. So the next item is the discussion and possible action as the update on the superintendent search. And so as part of this conversation, I did just want to read a statement regarding kind of where we're at with the leadership for the district from the school committee. And so I did want to take a minute just to talk about the resignation of the interim superintendent and the discussions that ensued last evening. When I ran for North Kingstown School Committee, it was because it was apparent that a new perspective and leadership was needed to deal with some of the serious issues that are faced in our school department. For those of you who were watching the elections, I grew up in town. My across the street neighbors are here today, and I went through the district. And as a parent of children in the schools, this was very important to me to be able to help. As recent events have unfolded, it is clear that the relationship between the superintendent and the school committee needs to change. And I think that is on both sides of trying to figure out a way to work together. And so in the short time that I have been a member of the North Kingstown School Committee and very graciously accepted the chairship, I really did try with my best efforts to improve the relationships between the interim superintendent and the school committee. It is essential at this time that we work together to really establish a new relationship so that we can help and make sure that the mistakes of the past are not going to be repeated in the future. I was extremely disappointed and frustrated at last night's meeting deterioration to the point that it did, and that we find ourselves in another situation where the interim superintendent has to be appointed while we are searching for the permanent one. It is really important to note that last night's meeting was intended to be conducted in executive session, as we very much value our personnel matters and their confidentiality. It is the right of any personnel to ask for that conversation to be an open, and so that was a very unique meeting and a special meeting of the committee that was done through transparency and out of respect of the employees' wishes. With that said, I want to reiterate my belief that my colleagues on the stage and I are going to work our hardest to bring the leadership and transparency that I was sitting in those seats asking for as well just a few months ago. And we most certainly need to focus on the main goals and main priorities to get our school department back in track. I have such huge respect for our teachers and our students and our administrators who have worked really hard throughout this difficult time. And I believe that there is a path forward that will really restore confidence in the school department leadership as well as the school committee. And it may certainly have some additional bumps along the way, but I truly believe that we will emerge a stronger school department in the future. And so I just wanted to give that commitment that we are going to work as hard as possible to really make sure that we are doing things. And I greatly appreciated Ms. Sapala's updates as we wanted to make sure that folks knew that we are working very hard to establish that baseline of the administrative office at this point. And so, of course, a big piece of that is the superintendent search. And there's a couple different areas of that. And so in the notice that we sent out today, we talked about the 3 different levels. And so the first level is the immediate. And as most of you have heard and probably saw in the announcement, the interim assistant superintendent very graciously accepted the role as deemed what would happen if a superintendent left a district, and will be filling those duties until we can come up with the short-term plan. After the acceptance of the resignation this morning, immediately we started reaching out to folks to see of interest of possible folks that might be willing to come in and assist in the leadership in an interim role. As Ms. Paula very clearly has stated that she enjoys the assistant superintendent work very much and would like to continue to do that if possible. And so we did do some outreach to folks and had some very positive responses to those, and we'll be working swiftly to try to name a new interim superintendent to not have any disruption to the day-to-day operations of our school district. Additionally, we also reached out to our local legislators because, as many of you heard last night, Ms. Zapala has a timeline on the ability of how long she's able to serve this district, and that is due to some regulations surrounding the pension and retirement. And so before the conversation that happened last night, other folks in the state were working with people to try to extend the time that folks are able to serve school districts. But North Kingstown today, through myself as the chair, worked very actively to try to advocate for that, to allow for amazing, talented educators to continue to help serve our students. Also, we were working with the company that we worked with for the superintendent search to be able to resume that search. And I heard very clearly in some of the citizens' comments that we need to make sure that the search is well done and very thoughtfully handled. And I think big pieces of that will be very clear transparency on what we are looking for and what this district needs, as well as making sure that we are very clear as a school committee to the screening committee on what we're looking for and the information that we are expecting to come through as the folks meet with the community. And so our plan for that will be to set up a preliminary meeting with the company to go over the steps and the necessary items that they need. It is a continuation of the previous search, so that is a great news because we do not have to work through any of the purchasing and acquiring a search committee processes. And then once we are able to, we will be able to use a lot of the information that the past committee did to go forward as far as the community needs assessment. We'll ensure that that is looked at and followed, and any tweaks that are needed, and then also things like the candidate profile, et cetera. And then we will be reaching out and looking at the screening committee that the previous committee had, and something that is very important is making sure that all of the folks that need to be involved in that conversation are participating, as this is an extremely important decision for our district. And we'll go through that process as quickly as possible to be able to get that out there and to advertise this opportunity. We also are very aware of the current challenges in a superintendent search in our district, and so making sure to consider and think through those things to make sure that we are attracting folks to this role and to this opportunity. And so our goal would be to finalize and have an anticipated start date for a new superintendent, most certainly no later than July 1st, the beginning of the new fiscal year. But our goal would be to establish that and have someone in place before that, but then of course potentially honoring the district that they may be in, et cetera, in transition plans. And so once we have a finalized schedule, we'll be sure to post it on the website, and we'll continue to give updates to the community and the committee regarding that throughout the process. But making sure that we are doing things efficiently and also very thoroughly so that we can have a successful search because it is so important to find this permanent role. And so with those updates, I would love to see any comments from the committee or any questions regarding the update to the superintendent search. Also, Ms. Apala, anything, or Mike as well?
I just had a comment that
there
was a request from the last committee and as well as the search committee that the people that were on the search committee be offered.
Yes,
You said we are missing 3 district employees from that search committee. But I also wanted to let the public know that this second search is not costing the district any money. It was part of that if we didn't find someone in the first search, they would conduct a second search for free. So I do want to just make that point as well.
Yes, thank you so much. Just a quick clarification on that too. I did reach out to the committee previous to last night's conversation, and I think there's a small nominal cost for printing and things like that that seem very reasonable, and so it is within the guidelines of money that does not need to be approved by the committee, so I just want to be transparent with the audience that it's not completely free, but just a small cost for things such as that. So, but thank you so much for pointing that out, and also definitely heard you very clearly on the fact that there are a couple vacancies on the committee that need to be filled, and that we do want to honor the commitment that the last committee made that it would be the same search committee if they're willing and able to do that. Other comments regarding the superintendent search? Questions? Tom?
I have a question about the methodology. You and I were both candidates this summer when the last interviews took place, and I was very uncomfortable watching 3 professionals, whether they were ultimately selected or not, have to undergo an interview in public in that fashion. And I'm wondering if we're going to make some kind of an adjustment, because I think that by adjusting it to provide the candidates with a better level of comfort, we may attract better candidates. We all want the same thing. We want the best possible superintendent. And I don't think it makes a lot of sense to be forcing somebody to stand up and show their qualifications in that fashion. So I'm just curious about whether you have any thoughts about that.
Yeah, I think, very grateful to the folks that were willing to go through that process. I do think that this new committee does need to review all pieces of that search process. And I do think that we most certainly should reflect and learn on perhaps things that resulted in us not having a past search, including the interview process. And so I definitely think that's a conversation we need to most certainly have as we determine how we want to process through the search, but also making sure that we're doing as much as possible to do that. And so I would agree that that's an area we most certainly should talk about as a committee and decide upon together.
It's a delicate balance between transparency, which I greatly favor, but also preserving the dignity of people who are seeking to hold a very important position in this community. That's what my concern is.
Yeah, I would very much agree, Tom, and also encourage members of the community, if they have thoughts on what would assist with transparency, to reach out to the school committee and let us know, because we do want to find that fine balance. But if there's information as parents, constituents, community members that you feel would be useful in a process like that, we very much would like to hear that, because we want to make sure to find that balance and really focus on the biggest task, which is putting together an opportunity to reach out there and find a really strong leader that is willing and able to work with the district right now to move us forward. And I think the biggest piece of that for me is making sure that we're also very much talking about the strengths of the district, because something that I've been so impressed with even in our past couple of weeks is how much good things are happening here. And I know there is a lot of other noise and things in the news, et cetera, but I want to make sure that folks feel very confident coming in knowing that they're walking into a great district with great teachers and administrators and students. So that's another big piece that I want the committee to consider as we're thinking about how we're going to approach this. Other thoughts or comments? And there's, okay, so there's no need for an action at this time. It's not something that the school committee needs to vote on, et cetera, but we will move as fast as possible and also give updates to the community as often as possible regarding the timeline, et cetera, and kind of how we're moving forward. And so looking forward to getting that in motion. Okay, the next item on the agenda is item D, discussion and possible action for the RST athletic app contract. And so I will defer to Mr. Waterman to give us an update in that area.
Thank you. So the app has been released or was released in the fall. We have not widely publicized it yet because at the time of its release, the communication piece was not available. Approximately early to mid-November, the communication piece was released, and the school department set up a training with the assistant athletic director / trainer, as well as a few members of the IT staff. During that testing, we had set up a test group with a test class, a test team, I should say, and we did a dry run of sending out a notification. And during that dry run, we notified, while there was only a handful of fake students in there that had myself listed as a contact, during that process, we notified all of our student athletes, or many of our student athletes' parents, as well as many of our coaches. So obviously, the app had a bug in it. Their development team looked into it, and we thought that we had a resolution just prior to vacation, and we did not. Just after the winter break, they again thought that they had identified the problem. So just early last week, mid last week, we did another test message. The success was that it went to the proper people, but it also went to all of our coaches. So again, it is not ready for us to release the communications piece. I did get notification earlier today that they identified why all of our coaches were getting the updates, and they are working to rectify that, which we will then do another dry run, and our plan, once we've confirmed that it works, is going to be to try it with one team. Once we've confirmed with that one team that it's working okay, then we'll share it with the rest of our team, with the rest of our athletic programs. I am hopeful that we will be, if not later this week, trying it out with our first team early next week. We are not delaying on this. The company has assured me that we are not being charged for the product while it's not working, so the district is not at a financial loss. Certainly, we are frustrated that the product is not ready, but they are. My emails to them are returned within the same day. In most cases, they are definitely giving this the attention that it deserves. We have made sure that all of our coaches have been issued NK school department email addresses, and they've been reminded that they should be using those. So we do have ways to ensure safe communications. The most convenient way, which is going to be through this app, is just about ready. And I do apologize for the delay, but it is something that will be a very nice piece once it is functional for us. I did confirm with the company that this is not a problem with all schools. This is unique to our instance of the app. So there are other school departments who have been using it for the past couple of months. It's unfortunate that we're running into this issue, but hopefully just a couple more days.
Thank you so much for providing the committee with that update. Any questions or comments from the committee? Yeah, absolutely. Let's get Gabriel a microphone.
So the app you said is for athletics, but would other clubs at the high school be able to use that as well, particularly the music program?
It could be expanded as long as there is somebody who is willing to. The athletic director, for example, has to input the rosters. Mm-hmm. There would just need to be someone who was inputting and keeping it up to date.
Okay.
Great. Any other comments or questions? Great. And so just to reiterate, and thank you so much for your work on this. I know it's been frustrating, but I want to make sure that we get this in place as quickly as possible. And so just to reiterate, to make sure I was clear on how I heard this, early next week, we're going to be piloting it with one team, and then
as soon as I hear from the developer,
it's okay.
I did reach out to them and try and push, and they just wouldn't commit to say it'll be ready today, tomorrow, the next day. As soon as I get the green light, we're going to go back into our test group, send out the test messages that the same teams that failed for us in November, worked for us last week, except for notifying all of our coaches. We will duplicate that test. I've already spoken with the athletics department. They know the team that they're going to go to first. And as soon as we do our test, which will not take us very long, a matter of 30 minutes to an hour, that's how quick. Once we get the green light, we'll be able to run our test, get confirmation that it worked, and then we'll turn it over to athletics to roll out with that test team.
Perfect. Thank you so much, and appreciate the clarity on that. Any other discussion on this item? Okay. And no action is needed at this time. And so we look forward at the next meeting just to getting an update on that information, if you don't mind, Mr. Waterman, just so that we can make sure that the public's aware of where we're at. And if we do need to have any conversations further with the company at that point, I would encourage us to do so, as it's been, I believe, since August, that we've been working with them to try to figure this out. And so I know things sometimes take time and technology, but I want to make sure that we're doing whatever is best, and if that means having to find another option, we will do so, but I really am optimistic that your tests are going to go great and that we're going to be able to utilize it with the students. Okay, moving on to new business. The first item on the agenda is the school committee's approval of Say Something Anonymous Reporting System, an MOU between Sandy Hook Promise Foundation and the North Kingstown School District. And so I would defer to either Ms. Apala or Mr. Waterman, whoever's more appropriate.
This is a renewal of a program that we've had in our district for the past 3.5 years. It is a anonymous reporting system that can be done through an app. It can be done through a phone call. It can be done online. There are a team of mental health staff that evaluate these threats or reports, and will, if needed, they will, if they deem it a life safety issue, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. It's an arrangement we have with our local police department, and if it's deemed a life safety matter, they will contact the police department first. The police department has a login to the system where they can view, they can communicate with the anonymous tipster or the person if they choose to identify themselves. Over the past 3.5 years, I am confident that this has helped to save children in this town. That we've gotten a lot of good tips of kids who were in a dark place, especially during the pandemic. And there's the ability to upload screenshots. So we're seeing what's being said, and we can sense the urgency in the children when they're communicating with the call center. So we did have legal review it. There were a couple changes that the Sandy Hook Promise, and they were mostly clerical changes at that they adopted and is in front of you for another 3-year extension. These services are at no cost to the district.
Thank you so much for that overview. Any comments or questions from the committee? Yes, Tom? Sorry.
This is a no-brainer. This is an excellent program. I mean, this is precisely the kind of thing we need to have to help in modern society. That's all I can say.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Okay, so with no questions, I will make an official motion to approve the Say Something Anonymous Reporting System MOU between Sandy Hook Promise Foundation and the North Kingstown School Department. Do we have a second? Okay, Mr. Briotti. Any further discussion? I just want to thank so much the Sandy Hook Promise group for putting forward such an amazing thing for students. What happened in Newtown was heartbreaking, and the fact that this product is available for our students in North Kingstown, I am extremely grateful for. So, any other discussion? Okay, hearing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Perfect. Any opposed? Any abstention? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you so much. Okay, the next item of business, item B, is being withdrawn, as it does not need to be addressed today. And so we'll move on to item C, which is the approval of actuarial bids based on the town of North Kingstown. And so I'm not sure if we have the information tonight to do anything on that, but that's okay.
So, committee, we do not have the information tonight. What the town provided to us and we provided to you is their entire bid, their bid process, the company that they awarded the bid to. We are trying to piggyback on their actuarial study, which will be a benefit to us in terms of the cost. But even as of today, our controllers were still trying to get the actual amount of money that we will be paying. So, I mean, you have an idea of what it would be if we're looking at an $8,500 accepted bid. But I cannot recommend that you take a vote this evening. But we're working on it.
Yep. Thank you so much for that update and the work that the controllers are doing to work through that piece. We really appreciate it. I did also reach out to the town manager to see if I could get any additional information and was not able to contact them. But we will make sure that we can get some information as well. Any further questions or comments regarding this? If not, we'll because it is on for approval, we'll need to have a motion to table it to a further meeting. Okay, so we have a motion from Ms. Lima, second from Mr. Briotti. Any further discussion? Yes, go ahead.
Through you, Madam Chair, I'll just ask that I think it's beneficial and I think it's important to the residents of the town. If we can I have no doubt that it's probably a cost savings, but if we can just verify how much of cost savings it is compared to what we actually paid as a school district last time that this came up. If we can just look back in the records just to say, you know, it was this amount before, here's what it is now, and this is the savings amount. I think that's an important piece that the residents deserve to see. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much for the question, Mr. Chase. And I heard Ms. Sapala say that, so thank you so much for looking into that for us. And if there is any time sensitiveness to being able to approve this, et cetera, please let us know. We most certainly can have it on our next agenda, but if there's something that would hold up something, please let us know, and we'll put it, we could call a special meeting if need be, although hopefully not. Perfect. Okay, so that is all set. The next item of business is item D, and so this is the school committee's discussion and possible action for legislative priorities. And so at a meeting with the town council, the chair, Mr. Mancini, did invite the school committee to come and have a conversation regarding legislative priorities and invited us to a meeting with our local representatives to have those conversations, et cetera. And so I just wanted to put that out officially to the school committee to think of items that you would potentially want to perhaps have those conversations with regarding the state. And so there's no action today, but we could have some discussion if some of the committee members have any thoughts. But then also we will be able to have an opportunity to send additional information to the town council clerk as well. And so I open it up to discussion, and if anyone has any, feel free to share. And then also we have an opportunity to send things directly to the clerk.
I do believe that Julie Casimiro, Representative Casimiro, knows some of these issues. It's on. But having the General Assembly write some guidance to ensure that there's equity in the most recent $250 million bond and the way they distribute it, as well as the funding formula that is really difficult for us to budget off of.
Yes, thank you so much. And I would definitely agree. On my list in my head, the funding formula was as well. This past week, I was able to attend a training for newly elected officials, and they were explaining the formula. And there were lots of really great conversations and discussion regarding the need for change. So I completely agree. And then also with the other one that you mentioned as well, Jenny.
Well, yeah, I feel like the General Assembly with the bond, from what I understand, the rules were set in 2018 that promote shovel-ready, and since we don't have any projects, that we're really not going to get our fair share of any of that money.
Okay. Other thoughts or discussion regarding our conversation in the future with the town council and the legislators? Yes, Jenny?
So, as I'm sure you imagine, I have a laundry list, but I'm not going to go through it. But I will say that for me, the two biggest priorities would be, I know last year there were 2 bills introduced around mental health funding and social work ratios for the schools. I would like to see those revisited. I know those are already in progress. And then the other thing would be working for universal lunch, free lunch for all, to bring that back. I think that's extremely important. So those would be my 2 biggest priorities, but I'll be happy to send the list over to the town.
Other thoughts or discussion regarding this topic? And I think I would encourage as well, as I did earlier, if the community has anything that they would like us to bring forward or discuss, please feel free to share that with the school committee. And also, Gabriel, the students, if they have any concerns or things that they would like the school committee to bring forward, or anything with the crossover as far as education for the Jamestown students, please let us know. I think this is highly important, and I am very grateful for the folks that represent North Kingstown and the great work that they do for the state. And so I want to make sure that we bring some information forward to have great conversations with them. Yes?
One more that I forgot that is important, and I think it relates specifically to our district, is the rule that where you can't, if you fire a teacher before 3/1, they aren't really fired until June 30th. So that would be another one for that the General Assembly could address that's important.
Thank you. Anything anyone else would like to add? Okay, thank you so much. And so that brings us on to reports. And so item A.
I believe that quarterly you receive a personnel report. which gives you, so once again, with the new legislation relative to you are not appointing every single person, you appoint you approve the contracts and the salaries of administrators. This is a document that gives you an idea of who is coming into the district as a period of time. So it's more informational than anything. If you have any questions on it, I would ask that you ask me those. These are names of employees and salaries, et cetera. I would be happy to clarify anything if you need it, but that we would do that outside of the meeting.
Sounds good. Any further questions regarding that? So what I heard was Ms. Paula said direct any personnel questions to her directly, but is there anything else at this time that people want to discuss regarding this item? And thank you so much for providing that, because I do think it's very helpful for us to have an understanding of that at this point. So the next item is item B, which is the subcommittee reports. And so the initial one on the item is building subcommittee report. And so, Mike, I wasn't sure if you'd be willing to give a quick update regarding that, please.
Yes, the building subcommittee met on December 21st, and at that meeting, the school building authority process was reviewed, and then we provided updates on projects that fall into three different categories. The $13.5 million bond, any projects we have that are funded through ESSER, and then the necessity of school construction stage 1/stage 2 submission and application. We received an update from the architect as to where he is, or where his team is on their walkthroughs. I know I'm hopeful this week to be getting a list of projects that will appear on the capital improvement plan that will be coming forward to you sometime in February. And once those projects are reviewed, he's going to send them out to a cost estimator, which will take another couple of weeks so we get actual estimates on the costs of these projects. We do have a meeting next Wednesday. We're going to be meeting at Wickford Middle School at 5 p.m., so the 18th at 5 p.m. The exact room is to be determined. I have to look at see what activities are happening in the cafeteria, the gymnasium. If need be, we may just end up in the classroom.
Great, thank you so much. Any questions regarding?
One more.
Of course.
So we did also meet with the Town Asset Commission last Thursday and submitted a couple projects that if funded, we could get started on this summer. They were smaller projects, smaller relatively speaking. They were in the range of just under $500,000 for generator additions and replacements at a few of our buildings, as well as a revamp of the fire alarm system at Hamilton Elementary.
Perfect, thanks so much. Any questions regarding the building subcommittee report? Okay, thank you, Mike, for that. So the next report is the DEI subcommittee. I'll turn it over to Jen for that.
So the DEI subcommittee met on December 21st. That meeting and all future meetings will be videotaped and uploaded to the NKSD website. We have a meeting scheduled with PCG tomorrow to review the preliminary audit. The final report will be ready by January 31st. I expect it to be available to the public at that time, and then we'll discuss it at a future school committee meeting. It was agreed at that last DEI subcommittee meeting that we would wait for the report to be published before taking any future action as a subcommittee so that we can use it as a guide, except for the following exceptions, which were to ask for a follow-up from administration on the status of the outstanding requests for updates to district documents, for us to formulate recommendations around membership in our committee, and to submit recommendations to the policy subcommittee for the anti-bias policy revision. And that's the update from that meeting.
Great, thank you so much. Any questions regarding the DEI report? Okay, thank you very much. And then the last one is the policy subcommittee report. I just wanted to give an update to the committee and the community regarding the policy subcommittee. So something that is extremely important and within the scope of what the school committee does is oversee the policies. And when I was considering running for this position, and then also once elected, I made sure to read all of them and really thoroughly go through them, and there's a bunch. And as we know, we do want to continue to update them, et cetera. One thing that I could not find in those documentations is an outline of who should be on the policy committee and that formation of the committee, et cetera. And so we are currently trying to figure that piece out and figure out what past school committees had deemed of what they believed the policy subcommittee should be. In lieu of not being able to find that documentation, I will present a proposal to the subcommittee, or the school committee, excuse me, at our next meeting so that we're able to move forward. And so we're going to do our due diligence to try to figure out what past school committees had set forward as far as how policies in this district should be created, who should be on those committees, and what those conversations and collaborations have. There is some very clear guidance and outlines regarding the superintendent's role and how the policies come up. And so nothing there, but wanting to make sure that we do follow the things that we are saying as far as our policies. And so we will have a resolution to that within the next 2 weeks, and then we'll be able to do the important work of updating our policies. I heard some of the teachers today, administrators mention some, and I'm sure there are others coming out of the office. And then, of course, the important work surrounding our Title IX one, which we do have folks looking at right now as well. So tons of important work for the policy subcommittee. But I want to make sure that we do it right and that we follow what we said we were going to do with past committees, but also know the timeliness of it. And so I wanted to provide an update on that, and then once we figure that piece out, we'll get moving, and also figure out how we can get community voice and input in the policies, as well as making sure that the teachers and administrators and everyone come through. And the process will be that the subcommittee will develop, work, and write on the policies, but that they will come to the school committee for full consideration as well. So the subcommittee is just a working committee and a recommendation committee, and the school committee will approve the policies as presented. Any questions or comments regarding that? Great, thank you so much. And so the next item is the financial report. This was provided in your packet, and so for your consideration. Yeah, hold on. Okay, sorry. Okay, 1 second. Sorry. We're gonna. Let's take a short recess, which I really don't want to do, just so that we can check on this as the interim superintendent wants me to look at something quick. So we're going to recess quick. Yep, motion second. Okay, give us 2 seconds. Sorry, it's nothing. I just want to make sure if there's anything we want to address, but we're still meeting, that we're able to, and so just give us 2 seconds. No, you did, yeah. So, Andrew, just clarification on how we get back from recess? Yep, okay. So I make a motion to come out of recess. Do I have a second? All in favor? Okay, thank you so much. Just to clarify, it was just the news was rightfully so here, as we welcome them at our meetings, but posted something incorrect regarding the superintendent search and some of the wonderful information that Ms. Apala provided. And so just that caught Mr. Waterman's eye, and so just wanted to let the committee know. But there's nothing to address. We'll just make sure that folks in the news media get that information clarified, as we don't want misinformation out there, which is sometimes difficult with the news. So. Yeah, I believe just Ms. Lima asked for clarification regarding the statement, and so the statement, Mr. Waterman, I don't.
Do you have it open right now?
Yes.
Okay. If you've got it open.
There was it was reported on Twitter by one of the local media that the school committee stated that they have 18 candidates for the superintendent currently. That is not the case. It's 18 candidates for the assistant superintendent position, not the superintendent position.
Was there a second misinformation on that as well?
they intend on hiring late winter, early spring, which is
That's
accurate
what
for
assistant superintendent.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that clarification, and we will have someone reach out to try to clarify that to the public. And then, so for the financial reports, getting back to the business under reports, that information was provided. So any questions or clarification needed from the committee? Okay, hearing none. Any correspondence that we need to discuss? Okay, wonderful. And so at this point, we've reached the end of our agenda. So I would, okay, we have a motion to adjourn, a second. All those in favor of adjourning? Thank you.